There it goes.
Hey,
Let me turn that around so you can actually see me.
hey,
There it is.
things
Looking at my TV.
it
How's it
is
going?
going well, going well. Glad we got the little technical hiccup there worked through, but
Yeah, sorry about
oh,
that.
not a problem. Stuff happens, but
Yeah.
the important thing is just improvise, adapt, and overcome.
Yep. That's all we can do.
Yep. So, I guess we'll go ahead and get started. The first and I guess most obvious question, James, is how long have you been playing
Mhm.
bass?
I've been playing bass for about 6 or 7 years, if I remember
Okay.
correctly.
Um, have you taken any type of bass lessons, or are you pretty much self-taught?
I took about a year and a half of bass lessons while I was in college the second time that I went to college. But I played guitar for probably 14-ish year, 13, 14 years before that.
Gotcha.
So I was familiar with the fretboard. Just I took some bass lessons to actually figure out how to play like a real bass
Gotcha.
player.
Gotcha. Um, so I mean that sort of leads me to my next question. Do you play any
Hmm.
other instruments? Well, it's obvious that you do. I mean,
Yeah,
besides
yeah,
guitar and bass, do you play anything else?
yeah. I play keyboard, whether it's piano. Not as good at organ, but I can get away with some stuff on an organ. I can chord stuff on a mandolin, you know, acoustic guitar because that's its own instrument as opposed to electric
Right.
guitar. Uh, what else? And I piddle around a little bit with drums, but I wouldn't consider myself a drummer.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So, as far as bass goes, are you mostly a fingerstyle player, or do you play with a pick? What's your preference with that?
I think I don't know. I think context matters, and since I am so much more technically skilled with a pick, if something's too fast for me to play with my fingers, then I'll use a pick until I can get my fingers up to speed. But most of the time, I use my fingers because I like the amount of the different sounds you can get with just your fingertips.
Gotcha.
Because there's a whole plethora
Oh, there
of different sounds you can get.
sure are. Yeah. I'm a converted guitarist myself, and I'm still trying to figure out fingerstyle. I'm so used to having a pick that
Yeah,
it just feels weird not having a pick in my hand. So I'm still kind of
yeah.
struggling with that, but I'll get there. It's fun. So tell me about your current gear and setup that you use to play live.
So live, I have an Ampeg Portaflex 500 solid state amp that I use for the head, and then depending on what I can bring with me, I either have a 112 Roland cab from like the
Oh,
late 70s, early 80s
nice.
that somebody gave me, and or I'll bring my 115 cab that I made from some parts that one of my
Oh,
buddies
that's
gave me.
cool. That's cool. Do you have a favorite piece of gear, or like a favorite bass or anything like that?
Uh, yeah, my favorite bass is probably my five string that's tuned to
Hmm.
E standard. Uh, it just I don't know why. It's just a base model of that particular model, but uh, I just I was able to set it up and it plays really nice and it has a really good mid-rangey kind of punch that I like and apparently a lot of sound guys don't like. But I can dial that out on my end. They can do some stuff on
Exactly.
their end. So
And kind of meet in the middle. Um,
yeah,
so
yeah.
do you have a preference between four string and five string basses, or do you really care?
I don't usually care. I do like having the couple extra low notes for just in effect every once in a while, or sometimes things are just easier to finger like halfway up on the fretboard since the frets aren't so far apart
Gotcha.
depending on what it is. So, it just depends, but I mean, I still pull out my four string from time to time just to make sure I can still, play a full show on it
Gotcha.
and sometimes forget that last string's
Yeah,
not there, but you know.
absolutely. So, musicians tend to collect gear. And do you
Mhm.
have anything really unique in your arsenal? Like just kind of a collector's item or just a unique piece?
So like right over here, sitting on my desk, I have this spring reverb tank that I'm working on making into a rack unit, and I have just about everything other than the enclosure itself. And I mean, this thing's going to have an EQ on it, a volume, and all that fun stuff. So uh, that's kind of a oddball piece of gear that I've just decided to make. And I like making things. If you didn't, if you can't tell. Uh, I also have two snare drums, which is completely irrelevant to what I actually do. But no, I've built myself two different snare drums.
Oh, nice.
The one's made of mahogany, one's made of maple. So those were fun little builds.
Nice, nice,
Uh,
nice.
in terms, yeah, in terms of bass stuff, I don't know that any of my stuff's really that terribly unique aside from maybe my cab, my 115 cab that I
Right.
made.
But yeah, it sounds like you.
But I mean, I have all sorts of little.
It sounds like
Go
you've got
ahead.
some skills that I wish I had in terms of being able to build and that kind of thing. That's really cool. So,
Well, it's just like learning an instrument. It's been a painful
oh, no
process
doubt, no
to
doubt.
get there.
So, who are some of your personal musical influences?
Oh man, let's see. I think I'm gonna try to go in chronological order. Um, I think Paul Gilbert, the guitar player, was probably one of my first influences, and aside from his like technical proficiency and whatnot, like just his attitude towards making music and staying uh, in a mindset where you can always learn and get better and make more musical things out of what you're doing. Uh, and then in terms of like bass, of course, James Jamerson, the Motown
Hmm.
bassist. Uh, People like Geddy
Oh
Lee
yeah.
and
Hmm.
John Entwistle. Uh, that's I kind of emulate their kind of style of tone when I'm playing with Ghost Dance Band. It's more aggressive and a little bit of clankiness going on from hitting the strings down instead of plucking them normal.
Gotcha.
Uh, People like Jaco and uh, I guess also like I'm a big fan of classical music. I play piano too, so uh, just all the classical people you've heard of, like Beethoven, Mozart, Bach, just for all various types of reasons. I spent about 2.5 years diving really deep into that stuff. So that was an interesting journey,
Oh, no
musical
doubt,
journey.
no doubt. It pays to be well-rounded and versed in a little bit of everything.
Yeah,
So,
most definitely.
what was the very first concert you attended?
um, I, I went to a metal concert with my friend and some of my other, well, a couple of my friends, and oh man, that was a day. It was cold when we got there, so I was wearing like this big jacket,
Hmm.
right? And uh, everybody wanted to be up at the front. I'd never been to a concert before, much
How
less a metal concert. So we're
how
up at the
old were
front,
you?
right against the little. I, I was probably 19 or
Okay,
so. So we're up against the front, the little barrier, the gate, whatever you want to call it, and 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 just this warm, humid air just rolls in, and so I'm stuck there in my jacket, and then it starts raining on us a little bit, and then the sun comes back out. So I'm sitting there just like roasting and steaming myself to death, and people are getting thrown from the back of the crowd to where we're at. So we got people landing on us. So my first concert was a very memorable experience.
do you remember who was the band?
It was like a 1 day mini festival thing. There were probably 10
Gotcha,
different bands. I couldn't tell you
gotcha,
who any of them were.
gotcha. So, in your musical career, have you had a chance to meet any of your musical heroes?
Not yet, no. And that's mostly on me. I haven't really made it a point to go watch any of
Gotcha,
them. Uh, but you know, one day I do intend on meeting a few of them.
gotcha.
The ones that didn't die 40 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, there is that.
Plus,
So,
yeah.
so away from music, James, what are some of your hobbies and interests?
In terms of like hobbies, building stuff, building drums. I've refinished a drum kit for a friend of mine for a festival that he does. You a little bit of woodworking and stuff. Uh, I like to cook. I love food. I know may not look like it. I'm a little skinny dude, but I do like to eat. Um, and like I say, I don't like working on my car, but I do enjoy it
Hmm.
sometimes, just a little bit.
What kind
But
of car do
yeah,
you
it
have?
has a.
Oh,
I have a Volvo
okay,
C30.
okay,
It's a little two-door hatchback. Yeah.
gotcha, gotcha. So, so James, tell me about Ghost Dance Band. How long have you guys been together? How did the band form? That kind of thing.
So the band has been uh, together since either late 2016 or early 2017. And I wasn't there at the genesis of the band. I don't even remember what I was doing. I probably had just gotten out of college and moved back home for about 6 months. So I was probably back home, didn't know any of these people existed, but they joined together because the drummer and both the guitarists were in a metal band. Uh, that's Chris, the drummer, Will and Weston, the two guitarists. They were all in a metal band together. And then Weston's brother, Cody, who's the singer, he was like, "Hey, I have a song I want to record. I haven't been playing guitar that long, and I just want to see if y'all would, come record this song with me." And they did, and they were blown away by the results of that recording session. That song is Rituals, and so that's how that got started. And then about October of 2019, I think, one of my buddies that's a drummer hit me up, and he was like, "Hey, you want a gig Saturday?" I was like, "Sure, why not?" And so I got in contact with Chris, and he sent me the whole set list, and I was thinking it was going to be cover songs, and most of them were
Ah,
original songs. It was about an hour and a half of original music, and I had about 3 days to learn it all. So uh, I did my best, and they brought me back a few more times, and eventually asked me to be in the band, and I was like, "Yeah, sure." So
well,
here we are, 5 years later.
so I know that that you guys have a song called "Dancing with Ghosts." Which came first, the
Mhm.
song or the band name?
Uh, the band name, I believe. I think, from what I understand, the song name just kind of happened with the
Gotcha.
lyrics, uh, but I couldn't tell you for
So,
sure.
speaking of all of that, tell me a bit about the songwriting process within Ghost Dance Band. Is there a primary songwriter, or is it a pretty collaborative type of thing, or how does that go?
So usually Cody, the singer, will come up with kind of a skeleton for everything, uh, and some lyrics and kind of an idea, and I mean, we'll all the rest of us will sit there and pitch different musical ideas, and sometimes he'll take one and make a song out of it, or sometimes uh, he'll just bring us like a bare bones version of a song, and then uh, usually I'll add some like vocal harmonies or something, and then Chris will add some drums, and then I'll come back in with bass, and then Will can come in with his rhythm guitar, and then Weston can come in and do lead stuff over that. It kind of the same way you would record it in the studio if you're not live tracking.
Gotcha, gotcha. So, I've during the time I've been preparing to do this, I've been kind of going down the Ghost Dance Band rabbit hole a bit. Really enjoy y'all's music.
Yeah. Oh,
I
thank
hear
you.
a lot of obviously kind of a rockabilly influence. I hear a little bit of Johnny Cash. Interestingly enough, and I think it's probably because of the rockabilly type influence, I even hear occasionally a band called Volbeat in there.
Oh yeah.
So it's a really unique sound, and like I said, I've really become a fan. Really have really dug listening to you guys, and I've also enjoyed y'all's videos. Each one is really unique, and really kind of
Yeah.
all of the videos kind of stand on their own for different reasons. I love the hats in the Graveyard Song video. I saw
Oh
that, and
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
those hats are just awesome. So,
Yeah, no, that's usually if I remember right, I think I had uh my stage hat on that day for that video. That was a really long video shoot. It took us about 10 hours to get that little space set up and
I bet,
everybody in there. It was it was a long day, but it was really fun.
I bet. So, typically within a band, the bass player is usually in at least something of a partnership with the drummer as far as locking in and being the rhythm section. Can you, I guess, tell us a little bit about your relationship with the drummer and how y'all click and that kind of thing?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because there's, oh man, probably a 15-year age difference between me and Chris. Uh, he's the oldest guy in the band, and I'm the youngest guy in the band. But we very much think alike in terms of uh, the music and whatnot while we're playing, and we'll sit there and listen to each other, and I mean, outside of music, even if we're just going somewhere, like we can just talk for hours on end, and just keep having interesting conversations about things.
That's
So
great.
just, I don't know. Yeah, it's a fun
So
time.
is Ghost Dance Band a full-time thing, or do you have other side projects or anything like that you're also playing in?
So that's my main project that I'm in, that I have the most to do with. Because in Ghost Dance Band, aside from being the bass player and singing harmonies, uh, I'll go play acoustic gigs sometimes with the singer Cody. Uh, I'll play some keyboard stuff in the studio. I used to live, but my keyboard is just kind of
Gotcha.
unwieldy to carry around. So, uh, and I've redone all the backing tracks because we have switched tunings. So we have backing tracks and everything with extra little sound effects in there
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. And I had to go back and listen to all the old ones and redo them. So now I've made myself in charge of that, and I'm one of the two mechanics in the group too. So, um, but in terms of other projects, I play in three other bands. One of which Chris, the drummer, is also in, um, and then the other two, uh, where the one that Chris is in, that's Dustin Brown in the Now. I play for Larissa Boyd, which is she's from around Hillsboro. I don't know if anybody knows where that's at, but that's right down the road
Mm-hmm.
from me in Texas. And then Justin Hewitt, who's out of Whitney, Texas. So that's my main four projects that I try to keep going best I
Gotcha.
can.
Well,
Scheduling gets kind of confusing
oh, no
sometimes,
doubt,
but
no doubt. It's a lot of just juggling and trying to keep track of where you're supposed to be when and all that good stuff. But
yeah.
as I mentioned in my in our I guess chats and such, I'm a native Texan myself. I was born in San Angelo and lived for my first 6 years or so in San Antonio. My dad's retired Air Force, so we were there as a result of that. But, I live in Georgia now. I've been here, gosh, 40, 41 years now. But I've still got a soft spot for Texas. So,
Hmm.
um, haven't been back since I left when I was 6, but I'm hoping to get out there again one of these days and see some things now that I'm old enough to appreciate them. So, um,
Yeah.
do you have I guess a day job, and if so, what is it?
Uh, at the moment, I'm working on some production
Okay.
stuff for a couple of people. Not for, well, for one of the people I play for. I'm not gonna say who because I'm too
Oh,
self conscious
that's
about
fine.
the stuff
That's
that I put
fine.
out. Uh, but yeah, I'm working on getting into production. Um, I do some diesel mechanicking when I
Mm-hmm.
can. But that's most of the time a weekend job. Every once in a while, I get to go during the week, but uh, and I'm very fortunate to have that job because it's helped keep me afloat a few times. But yeah, I try to make music my full-time gig
Gotcha.
if I can.
Gotcha. So, what is the most interesting experience that you've had playing live?
Oh man, uh, I can't recall. Oh, okay, yeah, no, I know what it is. I'm glad I just thought of this. So we were playing in the middle of like July, I think, um, at yeah, it was a Fourth of July gig. That's what it was, and and we had to set up in the middle of the day, and the sun was just beating down on all of our
Mm-hmm.
gear, right? So everything's getting hot. We're going out there with like a tarp to cover everything, keep it out the sun a little
Right.
bit, and we started playing probably 6:37. The sun was still in the sky but low, and I go to adjust the tone knob on my bass, and it doesn't do anything. And I'm sitting there, trying to play and figure out why it's not doing anything. And meanwhile, the lead guitarist, Weston, who's right beside me, his guitar sound is fluctuating wildly. And we figured out after a while that my tone knob was controlling the tone on his
Oh,
guitar
wow.
somehow or another. And to this day, to this day, we've yet to figure that out. I'm not electrically smart or anything, so I
Wow.
don't know how. Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
I
how
can't
that was happening,
even
but
begin to
yeah, I
fathom
was like,
that one either.
okay.
That is wild.
And it's never happened since. I was like, I was looking at him just laughing. I was like, I don't know what to do about this.
Right. Right. So,
That was
So before you go on live, do you have any pre-show traditions that you do? Like, like there's athletes that before they go out for a game or whatever, they'll unlace their shoes, lace them back up, and is there anything that you do consistently before you go on?
Well, we definitely make sure that we get our harmonies best we can, voices warmed up and all that. Um, I have to make sure that my hands are warmed up, and if it's humid and my hands are sticky, I'll go wash them with soap and hot water to kind of dry them out, because it's hard to pluck when your fingers are sticking to the
No
strings, you
doubt,
know.
yeah.
Um, and then we'll all get in our little group huddle or whatever you want to call it, and just you know pre-show pep talk kind of deal, I guess. Then we'll disperse and
Yeah,
go up on the stage and go play.
it sounds good. So, James, what is your actual hometown?
Abbott, Texas.
Where whereabouts in Texas is that? Is that in the DFW area or where?
Yeah, it's about an hour south of DFW, right off of I-35. It's the
Oh,
hometown of Willie Nelson.
okay,
That's that's about the only thing we have going for us.
gotcha. So, what would you say is your favorite thing about Abbott?
Just everybody. Um, like I can go walk down the street to my old football coach's house and say hi, or to a couple of my friends' parents' houses, just hang out for a little bit. If somebody is just walking down the road, you probably know who it
Gotcha.
is. And I live out in the country, so it's right outside of town, so it's nice and quiet out here, and you don't have to you don't have to worry about disturbing anyone else or anyone disturbing you, really.
That's a good thing. Yeah.
Hmm.
Interestingly enough, I've got a recently retired coworker of mine lives in a town that you guys are playing a show in coming up in March. She lives in Granbury, and
Oh yeah,
y'all, I think mid-March have a show there. So I've been telling her about you. Um,
yeah.
so um, so here's an interesting question for you, James. If you could give any advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Slow down and just do things the right way the first time.
Yeah, those are wise words.
Yeah, I learned that by being a mechanic. You you want to fix it right the first time, so it doesn't come back 3 days later and you have to fix whatever it is again.
Right. And when you're young, you want everything fast and everything,
Hmm.
and yeah,
Yeah,
and you got to learn sometimes the hard way, just to sort of sit back, take it easy, and let it come.
yeah. I mean, practice as slow as you humanly
Oh,
can,
no
kind of
doubt,
deal.
no doubt. So, do you have any suggestions for any other, I guess, up and coming bands to check out or potentially reach out to for another in this series of bass player interviews?
Uh, I would say American Merit would be a cool one, because uh, they had a bass player for a while that I don't know why he's no longer with them, but they've got a new guy with them, and they've had him for a year or two, and just talking to him, watching him walk around, he seems like he'd be just kind of a chill person, and then he gets up on stage and he's just up there killing it, and I'm like, that comes out of nowhere.
So you,
So,
you,
uh,
you
yeah, I think
so
it'd
you
be
said
interesting.
American Merit. Yeah, I'll
Yes.
definitely check them out. So my previous interview, I was talking to a guy named Ben Westcott, who's the bass player for a band out of South Carolina called Harry and the Hootenannies. And
Yeah.
something that I've been doing in this series is I basically have the person being interviewed or being chatted with, or however you want to term it, pose a question for the next person. So the question that he posed is, in your musical journey, is there anything that you've had to unlearn?
Definitely. The first 14 years of guitar playing, when I started playing bass,
Yeah,
uh, I played a few notes on a bass and I was like, every note matters. And then I went back to a guitar and I was like, oh, every note matters. So lots of muscle memory stuff to unlearn and learning how music actually works on my instrument kind of deal.
yeah, it's funny, like I said, I'm a converted guitarist, and I played guitar for really the better part of my life, off and on, really more off than on. And my son took up guitar and absconded with all my guitar gear. So he and my wife surprised me with a bass, and I had never touched a bass, let alone tried to play one. And I discovered that all these years I was a bass player and I just never knew it. I've
Yeah.
enjoyed bass more than I did, all the years that I was playing guitar. And it's interesting, I've been playing bass for about 4 years, and I've actually bothered to actually learn some of the musical theory behind it. And I've found that knowing some of that has actually made me a better guitarist on the occasions that I pick a guitar up. I actually understand how some things work that I never did before. So, it's kind of cool.
Yeah, most
It's
definitely.
it's
Yeah, and I think did you have that moment where, 'cause I know I had a moment like this, but I want to ask you a question.
okay.
Did you have a moment where you were just like, man, is this really what I'm gonna do now instead of what I've been doing, you know, for most of my life at this
Yeah,
point?
I mean, well, like I said, I didn't really have a lot of choice at that moment because my son had, had basically taken all my gear. So I mean, if
Yeah,
I was going to continue doing anything musically, I needed to sort of adapt. And I mean now,
yeah, fair enough.
he and I share gear. He's 14. He's a freshman in high school, so he's busy with a lot of other stuff, so he's not really playing guitar much these days. So I've sort of borrowed back some of the gear that he that he absconded with. But but
Yeah,
yeah, so it's good, and like I said, I feel like learning bass has made me better all around. So it's really
yeah.
been a good thing. Um, so I guess we're getting toward the end of this, but is there a question that you would like to pose to the next person that's going to be sitting in the hot seat, so to speak? I've actually got another one of these Wednesday night. So,
Okay. I think I would ask, why do you continue to play bass? Like why
well, that's a
choose bass?
good question.
Because that gets into everybody's motivation, and I love, hearing about why people decided to pick up the instrument that they pick up, whatever it is. But since this is bass centric, then why bass?
That's a real good question. So, aside from your Instagram, do you or Ghost Dance Band have any other social media that you'd like to hype?
Yeah, Ghost Dance Band has Facebook. we have TikTok, and I think we have a Twitter. I'm not really sure. I'm not on Twitter myself, so we could have a Twitter. We could not have a Twitter. Don't quote me on whether we have one or
Okay.
not.
Okay. And do you guys have any upcoming shows or any new releases near term that you'd like to talk about or anything like that?
We have a show, what is it, March 8th, I think, in Waco, opening for, oh man, what's Jarrett something, the singer from Bowling for Soup. I can't remember his last name just right this minute.
Okay.
I mean, we have plenty of other shows, but off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you where we're. Oh, and Granbury is the
Oh,
next
okay.
day, the one
Yeah.
you're telling your
Yeah.
friend about.
So do you have, I guess, do you guys have any new material coming out anytime soon or?
Uh, we're in the process of working on a batch of songs. The other day, we all got together and jammed on a few ideas. We had about 5 different things to really hammer out and work on, but we're working on getting some more material.
Well, very cool. Very cool. Well, James,
Mhm.
this has been an absolute pleasure, and I thank you for
Yeah,
your time and your willingness to sit down with me and just talk about music, about life, all that good stuff. So one final question. I was noticing when I did my initial post in my Instagram stories about it, the uh, uh, the other people in the band referred to you as the Badger. Is there a story behind that?
there is, but I can't say. I can't tell you what it is. It's a, it's, yeah, it's just no, not to be public
Gotcha.
knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah, if it wasn't live on the internet, I would tell you,
Yeah,
but
I get it. I get it.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
certain
that's all a big
Gotcha.
joke,
Sorry to
though.
put you on the spot about that. I just
No, you're good. I, I never even think about it anymore. That was years ago when that came up, but yeah, I forgot. I forget why that even came about. But yeah, that's ooh, that was a good one.
so anyway, like I said, thank you for your time, and definitely look forward to staying in touch and hearing more out of Ghost Dance Band. And it's really been a pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, thanks for
Absolutely.
having me, man.
And for all of you watching, and all of you in chat, and all of you that'll be watching, the replay and such, thank you. And everybody have a good night and a good rest of your week. So thank you, James.
Yep, thank you, Matt.